Welcome to African Global Insights, where we explore global events through an African geopolitical lens. We connect the dots and cut through the noise to provide a pathway to solutions through greater understanding. Let's get to it. The African Continental Free Trade Area, which was launched in 2019, is a game changer, or was supposed to be a game changer. It aims to create a single market for 1.3 billion African people, boosting intra-African trade by reducing tariffs and harmonizing regulations. Now, as of 2025, 54 of 54 African Union member states have signed the agreement, and 47 have ratified it. Implementation began in 2021, but the progress has been slow. It's been hard for me to find a whole lot of press and articles on progress that has been made, although there has been some. The key projects include trade corridors like the Lagos-Dakar Highway, the Cairo-Cape Town Corridor, and other rail networks under the African Union's Agenda 2063. However, challenges like funding, political will, and infrastructure gaps have slowed progress. For instance, only 12.3% of the AU's high-speed rail network has been studied due to financial issues. No single region has fully operationalized a free trade zone under the African Free Trade Area yet, but a few West African states and the emerging AES comprising of Mali, Niger, and Burkina Faso could get this party started. However, completing key transportation infrastructure is key, and it all starts with railways. Yes, railways. Now, why do I say that? Let's take a look. So, rail freight is preferred because cost. Rail is considered one of the most cost-effective modes of transportation for large volumes of goods traveling long distances. Due to the ability to move major quantities at one time, rail has a lower cost per ton kilometer than freight trucks. Speed. Transit times for rail and over-the-road trucking can be comparable, but trains are less susceptible to traffic congestion, road delays, personal driver stops, etc. Freight trains can move shipments over long distances more quickly and efficiently. Reliability. Today's railroads now ship at very accurate predetermined timeframes, which is key for logistics systems. Also, locomotives are now tracked via GPS. Free and fast movement of goods is the backbone of any thriving economy. It lowers costs, speeds up delivery, and connects producers to markets. In Africa, where 16 landlocked countries rely on coastal ports, efficient transport is critical. And with the African Free Trade Area, it is projected to increase intra-African trade in transport services by nearly 50%, with rail demand rising 28%. But poor roads and border delays inflate costs. Moving a ton of freight in West Africa, as an example, costs 8 cents per kilometer, which is twice the global average. So enter the Libido Atlantic Railway Corridor. Now, this is supposed to be the flagship project connecting the mineral-rich Democratic Republic of Congo and Zambia to Angola's port of Libido. Backed by over $3 billion from the US and the EU and the African Development Bank, it's upgrading 1,300 kilometers of the Banguila Railway and planning a new 550-kilometer line in Zambia. As of 2025, freight shipments have scaled from monthly to twice weekly in this corridor, cutting transit times from 45 days by truck to just 6 days by rail. Phase 2, which will be extending to Zambia, aims to break ground in 2026. So some may say this is a show of progress with free trade zone. However, this is mainly infrastructure for transporting raw minerals from the interior of Africa to the coast for export. Now, people, this movie never changes. At the end of the movie, the people always get taken advantage of. So let's look at this. As you can see on the right side, DRC and Zambia. This is where all of the minerals will be loaded onto trains. You just load it onto trains and it will travel to Angola, to Libido, to be exported out. These are raw materials and minerals. These are not finished. They're not refined or any other process. This is just raw. And trust me, there will be very little going back the other way. Now, the way that free trade is supposed to work, Zambia, DRC, and Angola are supposed to trade between each other. And it's supposed to be somewhat equal trade between each other, which does what? It creates jobs. The people benefit. The people have more access to capital. They can buy things. They can buy cars, houses, whatever. They have jobs that will stabilize them and their families. Libido Corridor, a reality check. The key interest in the Libido Corridor is to use it as a means of transporting minerals and materials from the DRC and Zambia all the way over to the EU and the US. There it is right there, folks. Let's go. Now, why now? Why is this so important now? Let's go and take a look. The International Energy Agency has estimated that between 2020 and 2024, demand for nickel and cobalt will increase by 20 times. For graphite, 25 times. And for lithium, more than 40 times. My goodness, people, I can't even read anymore. That's enough of that for me. Let's move on to West Africa. West Africa, home to 400 million people, is a trade powerhouse, or has the potential to be a trade powerhouse. But unlike the Libido Corridor's focus on extraction and export of raw minerals, AES countries and countries like Ghana are starting to focus on refining their own raw minerals and exporting finished products. Plus, West Africa's projects prioritize diverse goods, so it's not just one thing. So it's agriculture, textiles, other manufactured products. With ports like Lagos, Cotonou, and rail plans linking landlocked Sahel nations to the coast, West Africa could set the pace for the African free trade area. Political will, like Niger's push for rail, despite funding hurdles and private sector interests in projects like Ghana's rail network, give the region a big edge over the rest of the continent in my eyes. Let's take a specific look at some of these projects that are developing as it relates to infrastructure, specifically off everything as far as West Africa is concerned, and getting the infrastructure ready for the amazing amount of economic activity that's going to come their way. I mean, it's quite exciting. Now, in addition to that, there's also there was an old railway line between Dakar, Senegal, and Bamako, Mali, and it's gone into disrepair. It's like old and the traction it's not good anymore, but they want to revive it. Now, this article is from 3 years ago. I've not been able to find anything recent, but there's something in here that's pretty interesting. It says Senegalese delegation has, however, so far being silent on the detail of the discussion. This may be due in part to the need to not anger France at a time of serious tension between Paris and Bamako. So this is, of course, before the Confederation came into being. This is before AES solidified. So I guess before there was an issue. So the question then becomes, in this railway line between Senegal and Mali, it remains to be seen if Diomaye of Senegal will have enough juice or enough courage to go against France to complete this railway line. And this is key, and we'll look at it in a second. Also, there's another railway line that I was not privy to, but I guess it's supposed to be done sometime this year. It is the Kano-Maradi rail project for completion in 2025, says Minister. And this is between Nigeria and Niger. That's very interesting, and that's also a key point in this. But let's look at it from a big picture point of view. Here's a big picture point of view. So I don't know the full, I don't know the route, the whole route, but I know Kumasi is in there, in the route, and it will come up from Tema, up to Kumasi, up towards Ouagadougou. Like I said, I don't know all of the towns or cities that it may stop in, or all of the stops. But if you look at this is absolutely amazing, because Ghana, if you look at here in the red, over 35 million people in Ghana. If we look at Ouagadougou, it's 24 million people. So you connect to Ouagadougou. You say, so what? But look at this. We already know that Mali, Burkina Faso, and Niger are planning a railway line that connects all three of those capital cities. That's also very big. Now you've got the AES and you have Ghana, which is powerful. I just read a story where we talked about maybe the revival of a Dakar-Bamako railway line, where they would fix up the tracks and get some new trains and get that going. If they can get that going, now you have a port here. I'm not going to talk about the port in Côte d'Ivoire because there's issues there. I don't think that's going anywhere. So if you look at Dakar, would be a port. Tema would be a port. This Togo is in there, and there's a lot of activity going on around Benin, Togo, and Ghana with respect to their ports, and a proposed railway line for them. So now we look over here. I talked about this line between Kano, Nigeria, and this town, I can't pronounce it, in Niger. If somehow you can link Niamey with Abuja and then down to Lagos for their port there, that will create a situation where you have 18 million in Senegal, 25 million in Mali, you have 24 million in Burkina Faso, 27 million in Niger, 237 million in Nigeria, and with Ghana you have 35 million. In total, that's 368 million people that this would impact. This would be bigger than the US, people. This is absolutely amazing if they can get this. And these other countries that are in here, Guinea-Bissau, Guinea, Sierra Leone, Liberia, Côte d'Ivoire, they're going to have to come on board if this happens. They have absolutely no choice. There would be so much economic activity that they would have to come on board somehow and get involved. Can you imagine the amount of employment that would come from something like this? And we know that in Ghana, as well as in the AES countries, they've all talked about, and in the AES countries, they're actually doing it, but they're all talked about, refining and or manufacturing their own minerals and their own the raw minerals into finished product, some type of finished product. And just that alone, if they can get that going with this infrastructure, if you're not getting excited about this, I really don't know what to say. But there's a long way to go, and it's going to take a lot of will from the leaders of these countries to get this done. Now, I don't mean to suggest that some Somalia or Senegal, sorry, or Nigeria are close to uh, pushing anything like this through on their end, but I think it's something that could happen. I don't know when, probably won't be anytime too soon, but I think it could happen. So we'll see. We'll see what happens. So, what do you think? Do you think that this is something that's doable? I would normally go to a shot of just myself now, but this is just so beautiful to look at. I'm gonna leave. I'm gonna go out with this. But do you think that this is something that is doable? Do you think that this is something that, if doable, will be an absolute game changer for not just West Africa, but for Africa itself? We'd definitely like to hear your thoughts. And place your thoughts in the comments section. And as always, I look forward to the conversation. I'm out.